Thanks. You may not want to answer this, and so if you don't, I understand, because...
I want him to answer it, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on,
I don't duck many questions.
But based on what you said earlier, that you didn't want to get into who knew what, when, and so forth. But Arnie Gunderson testified in front of this committee, as you probably know, last week, and testified that he picked up on something that alerted him that there were underground pipes as early as July of last year. And so I'd just like to get your comments on that, how, I tried to get into that a little bit with Arnie actually too, which is how he knew and how you didn't know till just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
You know, I'll just say this. I am absolutely confident of what the department has done in this instance and how we handled the situation and try to follow through. I'm aware of all the interactions that Arnie had with the department and what questions were asked and how those questions were forwarded to Entergy. And, you know, at the end of the day, if people don't give you the right answer, I mean, to be very honest, I mean, there's limits to what our ability is to ascertain. You know, I don't have an excavator I can send down to the site, to put it bluntly. And I feel as though we diligently supported quite a few. I mean, Arnie is interested in a lot of areas of this issue, and we've always responded to him, and I feel very good about how we've done so. The fact that he always had and I told him this, even at least in an email, that, you know, the fact that he always was sort of curious about how it is that these pipes didn't exist, you know, kudos to him that he was curious about this. It's not as though the question wasn't asked multiple times. You're talking about, you know, 15, 20 highly qualified technicians, you know, on the inspection team for us that are involved in this. It's rare for those pipes to not exist in a plant like this, but it's possible. And, you know, so I'm really more interested, quite honestly, in the work of the oversight panel on a going forward basis. And I really just want to work through what is in front of us that's most important here, which is determining the source of the contamination and resolving that in a way that we know we can rely on the general, you know, safety of the population.
Sarah?
A couple of things. You've mentioned the culture of the industry. You've mentioned the culture of this particular company. You've noted the lack of respect that the NRC has.
I didn't say NRC.
Yes, you did. It said that they didn't respect.
No, Entergy doesn't
Was it
respect.
Entergy?
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't say the NRC.
Okay. Okay.
They have other issues.
That goes to culture.
It goes to culture,
Right.
yeah. You've mentioned tokenism. It's my understanding, just in looking around what's been going on in the corporate culture in the United States of America right now, that I'm wondering if you think you could get your confidence back in Entergy itself. And Wayne Leonard seems to be part of this. He's the boss. And the state's limited role. And it's a little bit more than what Kurt was asking about. What can gain you respect back when you look at the long list of what some would call obstructionism to the truth? And I feel that the truth about these pipes was obstructionism. They knew, they didn't know. What is it going to be, and what is it going to take, really? We're hearing that the department is very upset about this, yet I don't hear anything about what the future of it is. The other thing about the livelihood loss, you know, it is really sad to lose jobs. It's terrible. And when I look back at Vermont's history, and you look at what happened to the rail industry and the hundreds and hundreds of jobs that were lost when we changed over to the interstate system, many, many people were put out of work. And just at IBM back in 2003, when there were 1,000 to 1,200 workers, and we, you know, searched hard and we found ways to help those workers. And I don't know what the company offered on their own for this, but we found a way with some federal act and there may be something similar, if there isn't, there shouldn't be. But the 200 or so Vermont jobs, not looking at all the other issues, what do you think the state is gonna be able to do for those workers?
Well, let me take the first part of your question, and I'm
The
glad
respect and culture.
Yeah, no, I think they're
Culture takes a long time
Yeah.
for culture to change.
Yeah, no, culture, I can tell you, and I may have said this in this committee before, I know I've testified to this, that my sense, since I've been commissioner, and I think my team would say the same thing, you get a sense of the culture of who's across the table, and you pretty much have an idea what the relationship is gonna be like. I know that was my experience with Verizon, for example. You know, it was pretty clear to me they weren't all that interested in Vermont and what our needs were.
And you've said that about Entergy too.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna get there, I
Yeah,
understand
okay.
that, and I
Alright.
think I've made
I'll
it
let
pretty
you
clear,
answer.
I don't think there's a whole lot of love going their way this morning from me. First of all, I think that, I think there's good government and bad government, I think there's good business and bad business. I think that, you know, there are really positive cultures in government and sometimes not. There's really good cultures in corporations and sometimes not. And I think it's up to the leadership to set that tone. You know, cultures all comes from leadership. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It doesn't happen by accident. It comes from the leadership and the tone that those people set and the expectations they set. And there's plenty of examples of corporations that understand that. I don't, you know, I think that in the case of the nuclear industry and what I referred to earlier, I think it's natural and almost I'm not looking to be critical in the sense that when you're dealing with the complexity of what they do in industries that are highly, you know, specialized, and I go into computer and other technologies as well, that you're gonna have people that sort of, you know, let's face it, they operate on a different plane, you know, in terms of their knowledge and understanding. And I think that can be addressed if the company takes the steps to put people between that realm and the public that act as, you know, intermediaries and, you know, people who can communicate and translate back and forth. And I think that's where Entergy has fundamentally failed since they've been in Vermont. They haven't ever sort of understood that that's part of the nature of being in business. It's not just enough to produce the electricity and say we offer all these jobs and power, and so, you know, sort of leave us alone. You know, that just doesn't work. I don't know if it works in other places, but I know it doesn't work here. And I think that, you know, this recent occasion with the pipes coming to light, and if, to whatever degree, that culture had something to do with that being disclosed, now instead of before, I would say, boy, I guess that wasn't very good long-term thinking on their part. Because that sort of arrogance didn't really pay off. The second part of your question about the jobs, Sarah, or Representative, I'm sorry. I think it's a very serious issue for the state. I count all 650 jobs because we view all employers in Vermont based on the total people working there, and where they live is a function of where they want to live. And depending upon where the location is in the state, they're next to a boundary with another state or what have you. People choose to live, I mean, if you don't want to pay income taxes, live in New Hampshire, for example.
Most of them do.
Yeah, just saying, but those jobs are all part of that labor market. And, you know, White River Junction, for example, has always had a very low unemployment rate. Why? Because it's right next to West Lebanon and Hanover and the hospital and all that that's there. And that labor market, being what it is, allows people to do well on the Vermont side of the border as well as the New Hampshire side of the border. So I think the jobs in total count. I would absolutely reject the notion that there's some sort of benefit from the decommissioning of the plant. You know, $1 billion, won't be spent in one discrete moment. And, you know, the decommissioning of the plant is the beginning of the end. And having worked in economic development and watched plants, you know, equipment being taken off the floor and put on the trucks, you know, the only economic development was the coffee they might buy on the way out of town. So that's not the case here. I know that. I know this is a weaning off period, and there will be people continuing to work there, but it won't be something to celebrate.